Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to be reviewing Open Graves for Dungeons & Dragons 4th Edition. Now, this book was released a while ago, and it's not Essentials line, so you may have to tweak a little bit of the monsters to make them, properly challenging to your players and fit your campaign. But I think it's a great book, so I'll review it. Obviously. The very beginning of the book starts with an origin story, how the undead are, the powers, the undead genesis, the nature of undeath, sins of the soul, tainted by evil. There's a whole bunch of headings. I'm not going to read them all. There's a lot. Vile contagion, though, I think is one to note. And physiology, metabolism. They really do go in depth. There's a couple of these. And they go into real in-depth on how the undead function. And, it's more information that you would use if you were, say, a monster hunter. That was your character's background. You hunted the undead. I think there used to be a prestige class called Hunter of the Undead for paladins and clerics, I believe it was. Or rangers, maybe. And so this information would really help if that was your character concept. Next we go into cults and secret cabals. We get 3 of them. The Blood Scion Heresy. We get a couple of blood elementals and high preceptor, just a little bit of stuff. They're a high heroic. They're like a heroic tier kind of cabal to go up against. The Hataman, which looks to be about Paragon tier, maybe late Paragon tier. And then the Nocturnus, which we don't get a lot of information on. So I guess you could just use them wherever. Because for the other ones that gave example monsters based from that cabal or cult, there's not for the Nocturnus. It's just information. So, you could figure it out. I believe it is a city, a big organization type thing. Next, we get a little bit of information on the Shadowfell. 3 pages. Not entirely in-depth. Enough to whet your palate, as it were. We go into the DM's guide. Now, this section I really liked because I may not agree with everything that they did. It was very helpful in the in coming up with ideas and everything. Like recently, my home campaign evolved because of something I read. But it starts off with the how to do social encounters with undead. You get safe passage through. I don't know, it's essentially a negotiation. We get one with an audience with the undead as a skill challenge. Now, I do not like how they did this one. I agree that you could, in theory, have a skill challenge behind the curtain of how it works, but I would never let my players know that they were in the midst of a skill challenge, because that takes away role-playing. And the fact that I agree the skill challenge does help in some instances. I like how they set it up. They essentially gave guidelines on how to, make your players with their social interactions actually function and not just kind of be one roll they succeed. But they did, they gave it this nice little guideline, but at the same time, I think sometimes they may overuse it, and overuse thus takes away from the role-playing and the game itself. But it gives ideas on how you would do a skill challenge. Honestly, like I said, you might tailor it. It goes into how you would do hauntings. Hauntings as traps or as terrain itself. And a couple examples. Then it goes into some example adventures. They're very, very small. They're not like full-fledged adventures. They're like little quest hooks and something that to get your mind working and thinking, I might be able to do that, I might be able to use that for my game, I might be able to tailor that, or because of that I've now thought of said thing over there. There's one for 9th level, 15th, 20th. Then it goes into how you might use a zombie horde. Now I like this section because I've played adventures with zombie hordes, but you can't very well use as many zombies individually as a horde, because you'd just be rolling too many dice. So they gave you 2 options: either A, doing it in waves, or B, using a zombie horde monster and it gives examples on how to do that. They also use the possibility of a skill challenge. Once again, not a big fan of the idea of that, but whatever. It's really up to a person to make that decision. Then they give ideas for campaign arcs. Now, I really like this. This section was the reason I bought this book. Like, I had never really seen this book. I'd seen it in the stores and everything, but I never picked it up. But I picked it up, and I ended up on one of these pages for one of these 3 or 4 campaign arc ideas. And it was because of them that I was like, you know what? The rest of the book, I've read through a little bit of it, but because of that, I'm going to buy it. The first one is about a single enemy, like a single undead that is your arch nemesis type thing. And it's got a synopsis of how you do heroic, paragon, and then epic tier. Next, they have one about an outbreak and how you would do a zombie disease plague outbreak for all the tiers of play. There's a vampire kingdom. Now, this is the one that I really like. This is the one that really got me started. Was how they did the Vampire Kingdom arc. The very first one starts off with the players slowly getting the villagers to rise up against the vampire overlords. And, they kind of begin to build up this, the freedom fighters. Paragon tier is about the vampires striking back against them. And the final one is, them finally going to, cast down the vampires if they survived. And I really liked it. The synopsis is fairly well detailed enough that you could do it yourself without being tied down, but with enough prompts to get you moving. I really liked it. They're a little bit streamlined, especially this one where it's essentially a war game. So if that's what you want to run, great. If not, it's still really cool to read. I enjoyed it. Next, we get some artifacts. We get a jet black ion stone, mirror of secrets. I'm not going to go into a great deal of these. Orb of light, silver mask of Cass. Cass is the betrayer of Vecna, I believe it was. Soul sword, the sword of Cass, Tome of Shadow, Von Sarkovich family sword. And then we go into rituals. We don't get a lot of rituals. We get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7. We get Corpse Gate, Corpse Light, Grave Sight, Last Sight Vision, Skull Watch, Undead Servitor, and Undead Ward. Honestly, I've yet to really figure out the point of rituals. I like the idea of rituals, but I feel that some things were lost in translation when it came to it. Especially, I've yet to see the Raise Dead ritual. Not Raise Dead. Animate Dead ritual. I think that should be a ritual that should be accessed by the players, but I'm yet to see that one. Kind of annoying to me. Then we get a section that I really was a big fan of. It's Undead Grafts. What it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. It's 6 examples of what someone could graft onto their body from an undead to give them powers. Blazing skeletal claw, lich brain, mummy's eye, thirst of the vampire. Essentially, they replace their fangs and part of their digestive tract. White's claws and zombie arm. I thought these were really cool. They'd add a lot to a character to make it unique. When they go up against some guy who's got this flaming skeletal arm, or maybe he's got this one rotted eye that just kind of hangs out. And then they're not supposed to be for players. They're supposed to come with penalties if they're given to players. I don't like that. I don't think your players should do it. I think there should be a penalty against players doing it randomly. But there's no listed penalty, so you could do it, whatever. Next we go into Undead Lairs. It gives a little bit of examples of lair features, like where you might put them, where they're located, a little bit about how they would be constructed. And then we go into some lairs. We get the Graveyard of Cole Fen. And then it essentially is detailing adventures. I think there's 4. I'm just going to skip on through these. They're mostly... They're branched out across. I think there's 2 heroic, 2 paragon, I think 1 or 2, epics, I think. They're fairly long. You could run. I mean, let's see if I can just show you roughly how long that section is. There. So, I mean, it's as long as some books that they've released. Then we go into new monsters. Some of these are really cool. Like, we get Discord Incarnate, which is like when a demon and an angel at the dawn of creation, mighty. Oh, sorry, I was wrong. I was thinking of the something in the monster manual. I can't remember what it's called. But Discord Incarnate, at the dawn of creation, mighty Coatals, winged serpents of purity and virtue, strove to bind evil elementals and fiends. A titanic spiritual struggle sometimes resulted in the death of both entities and brought out a terrible fusion of body and spirit. From these morbid unions arose Discord Incarnates, perverse abominations bent on wanton destruction. Level 29 solo brutes. These things are nasty. Get some beholders, some blasphemes, and some pictures. Most of these range pretty much every across the board monsters. There's not a lot in each, level. Like, there's not a lot of early, there's not a lot of medium, whatever, but there's a steady stream throughout. We got different types of liches, mummies, night haunts, oozes, pale reavers I've used before. Pale reavers are great because they can disguise themselves and then attack from without you ever realizing it. And that essentially, and yeah, there's a good bit of monsters across the board. We got even Vecna in here too. So ultimately, I know it was a very brief review, but I thought this book, if you're going to use Undead in your campaigns, it's really good to have, especially if you can pick it up for cheap. I think you can pick it up for like $20 now still. And it's very helpful for Undead, and if you're still running your 4th edition game, or you really just want something for about Undead, this book is really, really helpful and, inspiring, given you could go out and buy Ravenloft stuff and get the same features, but, if you're running 4th edition, it might be easier to have some of that work taken out for you by getting it. So I recommend it. So until next time, have a good one.